Being virtuous as a form of bargaining is one of the first things the being discovers when it looks at itself. Equally remarkable is the cunning in selling this apparent virtue. All good, for example, that does not come from the nature of the being, is not good. And any good that comes from the nature of the being is also not good, being merely the expression of its own nature. This good, therefore, is unsellable, as it does not exist as good, but is intrinsic and manifested by the nature of the being, just like any virtue. The fool perceives the labels and the mad and intense pursuits to obtain them, as well as the prices paid for this. The being, deceived within itself, attributes to its unshakable faith in the distributors of these messages the guarantee of the promised rewards. The attentive being perceives how easy it is to introduce and sell images and messages attributed to God and his messengers. Enslaving beings as devotees or spouses of the gods is another highly convincing maneuver intentionally injected into the already inoculated unshakable faith. This is a book, though intended for everyone, for only a few fools, who dare to doubt and face any punishment for the misunderstandings of inquisitors. But, as it is always said, their protection lies within their own madness. The paths and points of encounter must be seen through the lens of their true significance. Crossed paths can transform into bifurcations, labyrinths, or knots. The degree, form, and intensity with which the being reacts to encounters will be decisive for becoming entangled or continuing freely. A careful gaze, aided by wisdom and conscious awareness, will inform the being about the reasons for the crossings, the time and intensity dedicated to the encounters, and what needs to be done to avoid turning them into labyrinths or knots difficult to traverse or untie. Detachment as guidance is seen by mechanisms opposing the freedom of the being as cruel. However, this key is extremely clear and represents the greatest obstacle on the journey. All opposing forces will always unite to give shape and content to anything that can attract and imprison the being in what are conceptualized as encounters. All ingredients capable of intensifying pleasure and pain will be added in varying degrees, with the intention of attracting and keeping the being within stories. Understanding one's protagonism is fundamental, for the being must see itself as the reason why things happen without behaving as a humble servant of others. Great care is required with this discovery, as others will claim it as a need for altruism to be imposed, even with absurd statements, such as giving one's life for a cause or for someone. The maneuvers of intelligence, in this regard, are easily observed and unmasked. This corroborates the information that all questions will always have answers, and that there are no eternal doubts. The figure of the circle, used as an allegory, also demonstrates positions and addictive attachments. A path must not stop at a crossing, must not be obstructed or divided. Let the being be seen as a natural path. Let nature be used as an example. Let a gaze be cast upon the various forms in which nature presents itself. If nature is not seen as nature, but as these various forms, it will not be understood, because the forms, though wonderful, admirable, and cunningly deceptive, are incomprehensible. The being, as long as it is seen as the incomprehensible forms in which it presents itself, will not be understood.